All right. You got the mic so you can do all the talking. You can do all the talking. Right. Am I on? I'm on. Ready to get started? No, Mike topped me off. Thank you, Mike. Yeah, people will continue to show up for the next half hour, as per usual. As per usual. Just a couple of things. First of all, we've got people that have joined the church in the past year or so, and we haven't really announced them to the congregation, which maybe we should do that at some point. but one in particular, well, two in particular are doing Sunday school during Sunday school. That's a new thing that we're starting off. So Jamie McCara, how many have met Jamie? Jamie and Max? Okay, Jamie and Max are teaching Sunday school this morning. This is something we're going to offer for time immemorial. But if you're interested in helping for the Sundays that Jamie can't be here, we'd be glad to recruit you. Additionally, Beth Lilly has been doing walkabout Sunday school during worship, so she takes the kids that want to go out during the sermon and then brings them back in afterwards. That's something we're going to expand upon as well too. So if you want to ever help with that, it's only you have to miss the sermon, which I know you'll be devastated. But you can always go back and watch it on the live stream after the fact. So that's my plug. So just if you get a chance, say hi to Jamie after she's done with the kiddos, so you don't disrupt her lesson plans. But introduce yourself. Okay. So we are gathered here today to talk about money. I put numbers up so you can just kind of get a sense of what we're talking about there. So again, the total sale was $400,000 minus prorated property taxes that we had to pay. And Mike, Matt, feel free to correct me if I misstate anything. We approved paying off the remainder of the parking lot loan, the back parking lot, which was a total of about $16,900, meaning that we have remaining about $365,000. And currently, that money is divided between two separate CDs, one at $325K and one at $40K. And I think the reasoning behind that is if we wanted to pull out of the $40K one, we could. And they're at 5%. So about as good as we're going to get for a short term, So that's the numbers that we're talking about. Before we talk money, though, I want to just show you a little bit of the presentation that the bishop made. Last week I was 2 weeks ago I was at Bishop's Convocation, which spending 3 days with other pastors is always an experience. I shouldn't put it that way. We have great clergy here in Oregon. It's just nobody likes work conferences, even if they're at the beach. But it's actually a great time, and I always look forward to what the bishop has to tell us. And so she usually does that presentation Wednesday morning as we're all getting ready to leave, so that we have to stay for the entire time. But what she talked about was a lot of the realities that we already know exist. For example, and I'm cherry picking slides from her presentation, which she helpfully shared with everybody so that we could share it with you all. She told us about a lot of things that we already know. For example, this chart from the Pew, this is the General Society Social Survey from NORC at University of Chicago. We know that in general, participation and or affiliation with Protestant or other Christian traditions is declining. You can see the numbers there from 1975 to current. It's dropped from a little over 60% to now a little over 40%. Catholicism seeing the same trends, although on a little bit shallower curve, but I expect that you'll continue to see that decline as well too. And you've got the other faith traditions at the bottom, which are pretty static. And what that all means is that the number of people that are unaffiliated, the quote-unquote nuns, N-O-N-E, not N-U-N in our country, are steadily increasing. So they're up at almost 30% now. And that seems like a pretty bleak prospect as is. What does that look like in Oregon? Because we are different than the national average, believe it or not. In Oregon, 48% of our population identifies as Christian. 42%, so above the national average, hold no affiliation. And then we've got a smattering of Muslim and Jewish populations and others, which include, Hinduism, et cetera, et cetera. For our purposes, we're primarily concerned about that 48%. But here's the thing, is identifying as Christian is a far cry from practicing as a Christian. And this is one of the things that I'm primarily concerned with as a pastor of a church is, okay, 40% of Oregonians say that they are Christian. How many actually show up to church on a weekly basis? Any guesses? Any guesses as to how many people on a weekly basis attend some form of religious service? Percentage? 20%? 15. I've got everything from 10 to 20. Okay. Sorry, that's just that. 7 to 8%. 7 to 8% of our population actually does something on Sundays. So we've got a bit of a gap, needless to say. And, and I'm not going to get into this because the reason I'm showing you this stuff is as we move into talking about what to do with this, I want you to keep this in your brains, right? Because in a lot of ways, we are swimming upstream. We're going against trends. And so I want that to factor into what we do with our money. Lana.
Has that been consistent for years, or is that
Nope.
new?
That's new. Well, I mean, new, but it's following the same trend, right? And one of the things that I've seen, this is qualitative, not quantitative, one of the things that I've seen is that the identity of Christian, has declined a little bit, but the participation in Christianity is a much steeper curve. Warner.
Participation regular, or does it include those who?
No, this is regular. This is regular participation, which I don't know, the bishop didn't elaborate as to where that number came from, how it was defined. Oh yeah, Creasters, which is fine. Yeah, go ahead, Susan.
It also may be a lot of people who don't attend
Absolutely,
support the church financially.
absolutely, and
It's not reported in here.
and this is by the way, one of the things that we're struggling with in determining our numbers is we're still trying to figure out what online worship attendance amounts to. And again, the primary question around that is, you've got so many people that view your worship videos during the week. How many of those are unique views, right? We can track those numbers. So those are the ones that we would point at as being considered as participants, right? But then out of those people who view either during the live stream or afterwards, how many of them are people that are absent from here, right? Or people that uniquely participate in that manner? And more importantly, how does that participation translate to giving and or participation in the broader work of the congregation? Which, we're still, the statistics people are still trying to figure out what that means. The assumption is, by and large, that online or virtual attendees participate and give less. Which for us, I'm not sure is true, because I know a lot of our folks that participate virtually are folks who just can't get here. And again, I'll throw Shirley Meyer under the bus as an example of somebody who is very vibrantly participating in the life of this congregation but can't drive anymore, right? Shirley is who I call to check the quality of the live stream, because I know she watches it every Sunday.
And she invites us into her home.
And yeah, absolutely. And Shirley invites us into her home for Bible study. What do you think the average age is for any LCA Lutheran in 2024? Yeah, you're guessing about right. In 2019 it was 68. Ballpark in 2025 is probably 72. How many of you are under the average age? Hey! yeah, all right. How many of you are dragging our numbers up? All right. I know. Oh, and sorry, this is dialed into clergy in particular, That's a picture of the bishop at the church-wide youth event, which Scott and I and the boys and Madeline hopefully are going to attend in 3 years when it's in Minneapolis. I waited for a time when it was in weather that was hospitable to my tender body. Okay, this is the slide this is the piece that I found really fascinating, and I'll wrap up after this. So, in the 90s, this was the rule of thumb for viability for a congregation, right? So, on average, 125 people showing up to worship on a Sunday. 200 or more baptized members, active baptized members, and an annual budget, and this is scaled for inflation, obviously. In the 90s, this would have been much lower. $250,000 or more annual offerings received. We checked 2 of those boxes, by the way. We're at, I think, 223 baptized membership, something like that. And our budget has been over $250,000 pretty much every year since I've been here, right? So we're doing okay. By the way, in the council's internal conversations, we kind of randomly, I think I already mentioned this, picked the number of 130 as the worshiping attendance we'd like to aim for. If that even means anything, right? Can you aim for a worship attendance? But that's the number that we said. That's viability. That's long-term sustainability, right? So we weren't too far off. I don't know if that was coincidence or not. I don't remember that number, but here's the question that I found remarkable. So 125 people weekly worship attendance. How many congregations in the Oregon Synod average 125 or more on a Sunday? 15? None? 5? If this were prices right, Scott would get it. It's 4. 4. If you count Online attendance, it's 18 though, which is interesting. Yeah. But then again, that goes back to, do we count online? How much? Number of churches with offerings received over 250,000 per year. How many out of? And we're at about 100 congregations, by the way, right now. 50? Okay. 30, 10, 25. Yeah, quarter of us. I mean, 75 receive less than 250,000 in giving. And then how do we do as congregations in giving to the synod? Because of course this is what the bishop gets to every year. 17 out of 100 gave 0 to this benevolence to the synod. 11 gave 2% of offerings or less. And 3 out of the 100 give 10 off the top. So I will be honest, we haven't been amazing at this. We're above 2. But one of the council's goals informally for this year is to increase our giving to synod by 1%, with a goal of increasing that by 1% every year, assuming growth until we can hit that 10%. So what happened to it? COVID. We're getting there. Out of these numbers, they're in between. So 3 give 10, 17 give 0, 11 give 2% or less. The rest of the 70 odd are in between 2 and 10. Yeah. And then this was again the bishop's reminder to us as congregations. 42% of the synod budget goes straight to the national organization, right? So what we as congregations contribute to the synod then goes to the national, some of which comes back to the synod. It's kind of a funky thing, but because we're doing creative ministry and that's not meant to be scare quotes. I'm just saying that covers a broad amount of things. Because we're doing creative ministry and we're on the wild frontier of the decline of Christianity, we do get some money back from the ELCA to fund those missions.
It's like taxes. You send them $10, they give
You back on your refund. And if you're in Oregon, you get a kicker of however much every year, right? Even though they keep adding new taxes for us to pay. Anyways, okay. And then here's the final couple slides. Only just over half of our congregations can afford a full-time pastor, right? So out of 100, about 50, okay? How has that changed in your estimation from 30 years ago, right? Yeah. Right? And, yeah, go ahead, Gail.
That could almost work as an adversity to them being any more enrollment in a way, doesn't it? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I would think, because if you went to a church that had a part-time pastor, you might not feel like you were getting the whole package.
It depends how it's done. It really depends how it's, and I'll throw out my home congregation of Lear Lutheran Church in Lear, Michigan as an example. They average 35 people on a Sunday, which for that church is full. They can seat about 50. It's not a big, it's a small, congregation. But they have some of the most active lay involvement I've ever seen. And they don't have a pastor at all. They pay pulpit supply every week. And they have 2 regular dudes that show up. And they are a thriving, growing congregation. But their lay involvement, their lay team does everything from maintenance to home visitation, so. And that's exactly. It's a totally different landscape, though. Rural congregations have a very different DNA in that regard than urban congregations, especially urban congregations like ours that used to be really big, right? We tend to decline but expect the same amount of capacity,
Jesse,
Yes.
actually, back to the previous slide, but of the amount of churches in Oregon who have a good attendance, 200 and more people every week.
I think we might have one that has 200 or more.
Okay.
St. Matthew's and Beaverton, I think, might be the
Are
only.
we just talking about Lutherans or any Christians?
We're just talking about ELCA congregations. Yeah, this is just our synod. And then the other piece on there, if you didn't notice, is of those 50 congregations that can afford a full-time pastor, half of them can only afford a first or second call pastor, which means they couldn't afford me. I'm second call, but I'm 12 years into my second call. My salary at this point would be burdensome for a lot of congregations, which, I'll be honest, means that I don't have many options if, when I ever wanted to leave. I'm stuck here, right? COVID changed that, by the way, changed the capacity of a lot of congregations. I mean, so somebody asked, why, where, what? COVID really accelerated this trend. Okay, well, and then this is the last one. Of the 100 in Oregon Synod, 4 closed this year, 4 voted for holy closure. Those are an ongoing process, right? It doesn't just happen overnight. You divest of resources, you figure out where people are going to go, you handle that whole thing. 5 are in that process for 2025. Yes? Yeah, King of Kings. Well, King of Kings actually merged with not Prince of Life, St. Stephen in Gladstone. St. Paul Lutheran closed.
What's their new name?
Spirit of Life. Thank you. I was close. I was like, Prince of Life. Nope, that's the one in Oregon City. They bypassed it. I think, yeah. No, 4 separate congregations. There was one in Tigard, Tualatin area. Those are 2 different places, but I can never remember the difference. One out in Hillsborough closed. St. Paul was the year before, wasn't it? Or was it last year? Okay, they're not quite. And then St. Paul of Damascus, which we have some refugees from St. Paul of Damascus here.
Do they follow, or do the people usually join another, or do some people fade away?
Both. Yeah.
Inherited quite a few,
We have. Yeah.
inherited a few.
Central Lutheran, that was another one. Central Lutheran is currently nesting with Salt and Light up in North Portland, well, not really, Northeast Portland. They're going to be there for 6 months while they figure out if they just want to merge. So, well, I guess I can leave that up. I'm not going to use this anymore anyways. That's the picture. So on one hand, it's kind of bleak, isn't it? We look at the numbers and the trends, and it doesn't look great. On the other hand, we're in a unique spot, aren't we? We're one of those congregations that has above the budget and the membership, and we are growing in numbers again. Like every congregation, we took a big hit from COVID. We're coming back. I hope you have noticed that we've got new people that have been here. Some have joined, some are orbiting. Some came in and went someplace else, and we might see them again at some point. We'll see. So I'm just presenting all this to you as a way of saying we don't have to use this money to prop up our budget, right? We don't need to use this money to keep our doors open another 5 years. Let's use it to do something. And I guess the question for today is, what is that? And so I'll stop blabbing soon, but just as a way of kind of framing our conversation today, we can talk about like specific things, like somebody like, I think we should do this specific thing. An example of that is Susan Rustfold has met with council, and it has proposed potentially putting in a labyrinth to the west of the sanctuary. It'd be a fairly low cost endeavor, but that's something that that's an idea. But we could also talk generality as well too. Like we could focus on youth and families, right? Like what ideas do we have in that vein? And something I'll throw out here as well too is we don't have to expect all the ideas to be in this room, right? This is one of the things I've always not resented, but I've always been frustrated with, is that in a denomination like ours, which is very congregational, we are told as pastors again and again and again, you need to innovate. And I'm like, yeah, but how am I supposed to be a pastor at the same time? Like those seem like 2 very different jobs for me. We are a congregation, we are a community, in this room especially, of people who have been participating in this community for some time. We can't expect that all the good ideas are going to come from us. If they were going to come from us, we probably would have come up with them a while ago. But that being said, I don't want to dissuade us from thinking creatively, right? So, again, this is what we have to work with. Some of that we could probably commit, and this is honestly one of the ways that council is leaning. This is going to need to be replaced. The roof, we already did that one. That's good for another 40 years. This roof is going to need to be replaced. That's going to cost a chunk of change. Maybe, hopefully not 200,000, but 150, something like that. We have no idea. We haven't got any quotes on it yet.
Jesse, a lot of people don't know that we hired a janitorial.
Yes, which is saving us money from previous iterations of that. Yeah, O'Donnell and Sons, is that the name of it? Here in Milwaukee is our new janitorial service as of last February. Yeah, they've been great. Yeah. And that comes out of our annual budget. That's not coming out of here, right? So, here's the question. Can I erase this stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. The question is, what do we want to do? And I'm going to put emphasis on this, right? Because money's great, but money is meaningless if we don't have people that are willing to do anything with it, right? Like, we can throw money at the wall all day, but this is one of the things that I've honestly kind of shifted my thinking on, is when I was a young pastor, I thought my job was to pull the congregation along in the direction I thought they should go. I've changed my perspective 100%. If you don't want to do it, it's not going to get done. So I'm really putting there, what do we want to do? Linda, just shoot out ideas. And again, they can be specific, they can be general.
I have often thought about the need to replace the cover over our area in front of the church. The what do you call it? Portico.
I'm just gonna put some categories up here, right? So one of those categories is gonna be building.
And just to speak to that, Andy and I have talked about this at length. We have a lot of our sidewalk is covered by these porticos that have been there since 1966. They're a flat roof, and we, at this time of the year with all the rain, we have some lakes up there. And so, do we redo it? Do we replace them? Do we take them off? That's some discussion.
The flat roof?
No, this is a pitch roof. What was it, 1992? Roughly, huge capital campaign to take all the flat roofs that was here and over the education and the office area and put them as a pitch roof. So,
What's the condition of that walkway from the narthex into the gathering area? Isn't that a flat roof still?
That's a very good question. We don't know. We have leaks. We have leaks coming through the vapor barriers that are there, and they are built up paper and asphalt is all it is. With some, that's all it is at the moment. All our drains are basically non-functional that are up there. All the drains are basically non-functional. Yeah, there actually aren't eaves or drains. There is evidence of water coming through some of the light fixtures, which, yes, we're talking about all of the spaces in general.
Everything east of the same.
Right, and including the one going to the north.
Yep.
And there is potential rot because of the extent and duration of the water damage. And the product that's up there is 2x6 TNG. So, it's not cedar or anything like that. So we don't know. And are they secure? Yeah, they're secure for the moment. Would like this year is supposed to be a heavy weather year. If we had another 40 inches of snow, who knows?
Please no. Please no.
But we had that. That's like 15 years ago or less.
Yeah. What's that? Snow? I didn't think it happened in Oregon, but that my perspective has been changed.
I've often wondered if the offset of doing something with half of the parking lot to get rid of it so we would save money on the water cost, because it seems to be really high.
Yeah.
You know, and that's St. Mark's up off of Powell and 54th took part of their parking lot. I think, you know, as Love One talked last week, and built some low-income veterans housing on a third of the parking lot that they had. And they're now in the process of reimagining what to do with their worshiping space, because it seats about 360 people, but they're only getting about 15 in person and 15 online. Good. The tax,
Stormwater.
surface water drainage. Currently, our water bill this last month, I think it was $1,600. I think $1,400 of that is surface water drainage. Yes, monthly. Now, there's a couple different options there. I mean, you can build what they call drainage swells, which are natural drainage areas that'll hold water and then eventually saturate the ground. But the cost to build that would be pretty significant as well. Selling off part of the property. Someone else will pay that surface water drainage. Everybody does.
I was thinking, I'm a tax aid volunteer, but this would be a super room to offer tax aid services to. You know, it has internet, it has lots of space. So I don't know if they need it, but tax aid needs it.
Okay.
But oh, I said this would be a great room for tax aid. You know, doing tax aid to do tax preparation for people.
Well, yeah, and to clarify, that would, I mean, yeah, definitely. That falls into kind of the category of using this space more. Yeah, I don't know if there would be a cost to us.
Or offering it to the community more.
Currently, our use of the facilities, we budgeted. Trying to think, we budgeted roughly
6,000, I think it was.
Was it 6,000 annually? I think it was. But we're currently on about $11,000 of
Income.
money coming in for building use this year.
Yep.
Per year at this point, yeah.
Per this year. Yeah. Yeah, it's on.
Well, this is a different heading, and I don't know what the answer is, but I'd like to see us put some of our money into some programs or something that'll make our church grow.
Yeah.
I think that's the most important.
Well, I'm not a member, so this is
You count, Warner.
kind of, yeah, I'm a lawyer also, so never give me a mic. So just spinning off of what she just said about growth. So why is the congregation growing? Do we know? And we see the numbers for Christianity falling off. Do we know whether that is traditional? Is it broad-based? What are the large evangelical churches doing? Because they seem to be growing.
The large evangelical churches are about 20 years behind the curve on us, so they are now beginning to experience their decline. And you know, and you could, well, I could talk a long time about this.
Sure.
But in my opinion, the reason for that is the 90s, the 80s and the 90s. So I mean, the ELCA formed late 80s. We were very healthy through the 90s, but the conflict that occurred in congregations in the 90s was the rise of what I call big box churches. And the mistake that we made, and I really think it was a mistake, and it's nobody's fault, we tried to match what they were doing. So even when I was in seminary in the early 2000s, the strategy, we were forced to read Rick Warren. Does anybody know who Rick Warren is? Yeah, we were forced to read Rick Warren's 40 days of purpose. What I can't remember. Purpose-driven church.
Right.
Purpose-driven church.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was really interesting because essentially what Rick Warren said is just be in the right place at the right time. So, he built Saddleback Church
Right.
in California. And pretty much what he did is he looked at census data, picked the fastest growing suburb and plopped a church there, and then in about 5 years had a very successful church, which is interesting. I talked with a pastor in Bend, who is one of the other congregations who is above 250,000. He might even be one of the churches that's above 125 people on a weekly basis. I've talked to Chris several times, and I said, so what are you guys doing? He said, Bend is growing. Bend's growth rate was 4.8% this past year. The suburbs of Bend, which there are suburbs now, right, unofficially, grew at over 8%. So a lot of it is, be in the right place at the right time. We're in an interesting, what's that? Absolutely. Yes, that makes a big difference. They do. They do have a school there. That also makes a big difference. I think again, I don't think it's just demographics. Warner's asking why are we part of it is critical mass, I'll be honest. Even though our space is so big that 100 people feels empty. I will tell you that there's a big difference between walking in and seeing 60 people versus walking in and seeing 15, right? And that's not hard math to do. So critical mass is a part of that, which is why, council, absolutely. What can we do to grow the congregation? If I knew the answer to that, boy, I'd be making a lot of money. I wouldn't be working here. I'd be writing books and selling them and making I could still work here, I suppose. One sec, I'll get to Lana's question. Or no, go ahead, Lana. Yeah.
Well, I just have two concerns, and mine are kind of like
Sure.
just normal budget. We need to hire a landscape business. Jay isn't going to be able to maintain this stuff for a long time. We don't have a young congregation. So that's a concern I have.
Absolutely.
And part of the issue with the reason why churches kind of went away in the late 90s and stuff, weekend sports for kids.
Yeah, but that doesn't explain why big box churches grew. Right?
Flash. Flash.
That does help. And absolutely, and Scott can tell you, there are so many things competing for Henry and Oliver's time right now, not just on Sundays, but in general. It's a very interesting time to be a teenager. You can't just show up for baseball anymore. Now you got to go to camps and all that jazz. I'm watching it happen with my niece. My brother and sister, I don't know if they do anything besides take her to stuff. It's not. That's definitely a factor that is even affecting us now. But again, big box. And let me be just really cynical for a little bit. They're really effective businesses. They're extremely effective businesses, and they run their churches as a business. Okay, obviously, I think that's wrong. I don't think that's what we're called to do as Christians, but that's why they're effective. Okay. The way they prioritize their budgets is as a business. They're literally looking at money and seeing where they can invest their money to get a return on investment. So if that means hiring a professional sound light team, to put on a big show on Sunday morning, that's where their money's going. And, to the pastor who doesn't have any checks or balances in terms of how the congregation's managed. This is the tough thing for us, right? Is for mainline Protestantism, I'm going to go out there and say, we're supposed to do what Jesus asked us to do, right? Which we can have a great conversation about what that means. That's what I preach about every Sunday. Growing a business was not one of those things. Turning a profit is not one of those things, and I think it's actually counter to one of those things. So I'm biased, right? I'm very biased. Why are we growing? Critical mass, closures, as different congregations have failed. Not failed, that's the wrong term. As different congregations have closed their doors, we've received some people, but that's not all. We're in a great place because Milwaukie is the mecca of retirement homes, right? So we have lots of people who have moved into this area from the Midwest whose kids live out here. that have come in to be a part of this community, which is fantastic. The demographics of Milwaukee are changing, right? There's quite a bit of turnover because of the housing market in Portland. You know, it's concentric circles, right? As something gets developed downtown, people move out and out and out and out. So this is a place that's got a lot of movement. Dylan and Kaya can tell you about their home that they bought for, I don't remember, it was less than $250,000 that is now worth 3 times that, right? That's just one of the realities. And so we're going to see changing demographics, which may include people. I think another piece is that we are in a good spot in terms of who we are. For whatever reason, and I don't want to take all the credit, or any credit for that matter. We have a community that gets along well, right? Which ain't nothing, right? We have a community that is open and affirming, which is kind of a default standard in 2025, 2024, for a few more weeks yet, especially in Portland. We are a congregation that is involved in our community. I mean, it doesn't necessarily translate to worship attendance, but it might, right? The fact that people at Rao Middle School know that we fund their teachers and their kids through the generosity of this congregation. It's a lot of it is what we do. Sorry.
Yeah. So what I would say is, you have a really good preacher, and I think if we're going to really highlight that, plus the people retiring and not coming, that I'm going to put online.
Absolutely.
I think we need to have a support online, because that takes advantage of his preaching, which is excellent, and also gives people a way to participate.
And to back Laura up on this, there are 2 strategies with live streaming. One is that we're putting on a show. Churches that are big already, that's their priority, is to turn their live stream into a show, because they're at capacity inside.
I already told him to wear makeup.
Can you imagine? I would be late for worship every week. Not that I already am. At least my philosophy that I'm running with is I want to create an online experience that replicates an in-person experience. Because 2 reasons. One is for our people that can't be here anymore, I want them to feel like they are here, okay? So I don't want a show with a bunch of flashy production and all that jazz. Makes it feel like you're watching, cable access or whatever. Nope. I hate musicals. I've been traumatized by West Side Story.
Here's one that I want to write down is we're already connected well with
Yep.
the Rao Middle School and our preschool, and
Yep.
we're not doing enough with the ministries with those 2.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to write down schools.
Absolutely. And I would say the other
as
thing.
well as backpack buddies for El Puente.
Absolutely. My other philosophy is, and I know this anecdotally from talking to people who have come here, is that they all watch first before they show up, okay? So I want an experience that is authentic to what it's like to be here, right? Because that way they come and they might stay. Matt, and then somebody else, Matt, then Warner, either order.
I
Matt
just
gets-
wanted to put this on the table. Back when we were negotiating the sale of the corner property, I had a couple of members mention to me that the money that comes in from the sale should be put into a fund similar to our endowment fund, and that that money, that pot of money, would be maintained, and we would use the interest and the earnings off of that pot of money to do different things like what we're describing here.
Sure.
And I'm not advocating for that necessarily, but
But it's an idea.
I do want it to be on the table for us to think about
Absolutely.
as an alternative to spending down the pot of money that we've got.
And to clarify too, you're not just shouting into the void here, right? This is intended to inform council so that as council deliberates and comes up with things to present to the congregation, right? We've heard from the congregation, which doesn't have to stop. This isn't the only time that we're going to solicit, this kind of input. If you come up with something and that you want council to consider, because the way that this has to work, by the way, is that council is not going to be the idea generator. They're the funnel, right? So we come up with something that we want to do, right? I don't know, build a playground in that, whatever. Turn the parking lot into a park. Council's going to figure out how to do that, but then we come back to the congregation for approval on anything regarding that money, right? So, Warner, and then Susan.
So you've got wonderful outreach with Backpack Buddies and
Yep.
preschool and ROW and all the rest of that. Do you include in part of that outreach advertising, I'll call it? I mean, do the people who receive that know what the schedule is, what the opportunities are? Are they invited to
Sort of.
attend? Are they invited to go online?
Backpack Buddies specifically, we're very limited on what we can put in the backpack,
Yeah,
and that
okay.
can't include any sort of propaganda. I mean, that's a bad word, but any propaganda for the church.
No, propaganda is a very good
Yeah,
word,
yeah,
actually.
No, propaganda is good. Yeah, Backpack Buddies is limited. I would guess that families are aware of who their provider is, but that would require the school to notify them. And I would, well, in promotion. Promotion is the word. That was the word I was looking for, not propaganda.
Maybe there's a case where we actually put on a spaghetti dinner or some kind of a thing that includes
Sure.
the parents of those kids at ROW.
Yeah.
Or those families, and maybe we do it once a month or something.
And by the way, when you say, you know, one of the things we've got going for us is schools, this is exactly what we're talking about. And the truth is no, we don't do a great job of celebrating the things that we do. But that's endemic to the ELCA in general, okay? And sure. And it's, you're a we, Warner. And I struggle with this, right? As a Scandinavian partial Stoic, right? Who, you know, never wants to be recognized for anything because, you know, I'm embarrassed. I think there's a lot of us that fall into that category. Promotion is hard for us to do because it feels like we're bragging. But I think that there is a way, and that's it. There's a way of celebrating and inviting, and we could be a lot better at that. And I imagine that there are things we could throw money at, and not to use that. There are ways that we can invest in doing that better. Andy.
Yeah, there's one thing we are doing that we don't have up there, and that is the Boy Scout troop. Yeah, because
Yep.
what we're trying therefore, and that is something because they would have their meeting here, and we can somehow expand what that really means to them by being more involved with that program.
Sure.
So, and as for the endowment, I'm going to expand on that. We have had dedicated funds given to the church for building purposes for
The
30
Ethelfolder
years.
Fund.
And we've done a very excellent job of husbanding
I agree.
those funds. And that's as much as I would expect to see from the endowment. It's a source to put it.
Yep.
Use the interest, don't use the principal.
Sure.
But we're husbanding the resources. If you need to change that, great, it can be changed. But it's a good place to put it, you know, to realize what we can do with that money to keep this building for all these things we want to do available.
Choir.
We have 65 people that come into this church on Tuesday evenings for singing and
Choir,
also,
music.
yeah, the choir.
Music, yeah.
One of the things that comes to my mind, as you're saying, as everybody's saying different things about promotion, and it's not in our nature to do that. And I'm not suggesting a youth pastor, but I'm suggesting maybe we should hire someone who has experience, has a training in promotion, we have wonderful ideas, and it seems like half of them fall flat because nobody wants to take charge or don't know how. We need somebody who can take charge and get it done.
We almost hired her. The first candidate, I don't know if we made this public knowledge, but we had a candidate that we extended an offer to for the office admin position that ended up getting like 3 more offers the week after we extended her an offer. And not to diminish Joe in any way, shape, or form. He is definitely a great candidate, and we're happy to have him. But that first candidate we offered the position to had extensive experience in marketing and design. And I remember thinking, we'll bring her in at 12 hours and then we'll get her to full time eventually. But hey, God works in mysterious ways. So I will say this, is that yes, absolutely, that is definitely a way that we could invest money. I will say though that we can be a lot better about this. So quilters, take pictures of what you're doing, email it to the office. If you're here and doing whatever, if you're packing for backpack buddies, take a picture of it, send it to the office. You don't know how to send photos on your phone, I'll show you how, right? Because this is the kind of stuff, if I've got material to work with, did you know that we don't actually have any photos of the church or building that we can use? The only ones we have are ones that I took in 2020 when the church was empty, because I needed backgrounds for our worship video, right? So you all have wonderful little devices, mine is over there, right, that take professional quality photos. And if you're doing something here, photograph it, send it to the congregation, we'll throw it up on the Facebook page. And that is essentially what we would pay somebody to do. Not that we don't need that, right? Because having somebody who is in charge of doing those things makes those things happen a lot more. But send me photos. Send the office photos. Great. Do that. Great. Yeah, but that's how it works, isn't it? Because they don't come if they don't know what's happening. Jill? Okay.
With regard to what you just said,
Yeah.
Promotion has a slightly different side to it potentially that I want to highlight, which is an emphasis on invitation.
Yep.
To be more invitational in our posture, which I don't think we definitely hold.
I think we're good at inviting to worship. I would encourage us to consider inviting people to what we do. Our quilters are really good at that, by the way, right? And quilters are really good at inviting people to participate. Yeah.
Jesse, I think one thing we probably should add to there is that we need a fairly good overhaul and enhancement to our online presence, Facebook,
Yeah.
our website, that sort of thing.
Yep.
So we can market this
Yep.
a little bit.
On a physical sign?
Well, there's a sign out there that could incorporate, like, tuning into.
I think our website's on there. But yeah. We're also okay. As somebody who went through the two-year process, we are using the maximum number of inches that we're allowed to use according to the zoning that we exist in. Just FYI. And no, we can't put ground lights out there. That's go to.
One of the things I was thinking about was the Milwaukie Center has zillions of programs for the community.
Yep.
And it might be worth, we don't want to compete with them, but it might be worth looking at some of their offerings, not just exercise classes, but they have education classes like, estate planning and.
Well, and I would say too, something that a void that exists post-COVID is we don't really have social events in the way that we used to as well too. I mean, and again, I will say the reason those social events happen is because there was a person or persons who organized them, namely
but
Elmer
also
Lampy. But,
educational events.
Absolutely. But then we need somebody to organize those,
Yeah,
or we're
well,
hosting another.
and we may have to pay a speaker to do
Absolutely.
something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But it might be worth looking at the Milwaukie Center newsletter that comes out every month and see what sort of programs they have, because it's.
And that used to be our health ministry team, right? We were hosting, well, not quite monthly, but 3 to 6 times a year hosting health ministry talks where we were bringing in a speaker, and we had people from MLC, but in the area in general that were participating. There's definitely, it's definitely been done. Yeah.
Jesse, I think under the building list there, I think we should add some thoughts about qualitative upgrades to the building.
Sure.
And I'm
Not
looking
just
at that television right behind you.
Yeah.
And thinking, you know what, that's a big step up, and from where I'm sitting looks great. And I'm not sure how much we spent on that, but it was not a
Mike got a good deal at Costco.
yeah, it was not a backbreaker. And, you know, Mike's talk about putting out a screen out in where you come into the church. And we've talked about, you know, a more welcoming family space back there and things like that. And those are all the kinds of things that if we think about, you know, investing in the building part of our congregational mission, that would seem to fit into
Those are the type of
this
things
kind
that
of
money
stuff.
really helps with.
Yeah.
We have a remodeled kitchen.
Yeah.
It would be wonderful to have some outreach dinners or lunches or something that people can come enjoy, because we're starting at quilting to make the big table, and it really encourages involvement with people, and they can talk, and it's a wonderful way of outreach.
Gretchen
your
had her
birthday
hand
party
up,
here?
and she hasn't gotten a chance to speak yet.
Your birthday party?
Sure. And I would, yeah, and I think that might fall under programs, but partner ministries, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm in full accord there. I had a thought from something. Speaking of building upgrades, I'm currently in the process of obtaining a quote to replace our sound system. Thank you to a generous donor. I also got a quote for putting in a new projector system up front, which would be, well, currently what we're exploring is behind the altar, above the sacristy, is having screens that would come up with a short throw projector behind them. That projector was great 10 years ago. And other things as well too. In addition to that, we're going to get choir mics in here or audience mics in here, so we don't have to pass this around anymore, FYI. So sound and AV investment is a very good way of upgrading the everyday experience here, but it also incorporates with our streaming, wherever that ended up on there. Yeah. So I'm looking at new cameras for the sanctuary as well too.
And a big thanks to Andy and Sarah and Paul Daniel for helping to get this monster
and
up
not
there.
dropping it. We got a few more minutes yet. If you got more things you want to chat about, I'm not in a super rush, but you can always get out of here as well too.
One thing with our regular budget at this point is
Scott.
You see how many lights we have that are dark up here? Probably not next week, early the following week. These will all be taken care of. We're going to convert the fluorescent tubes to LEDs. And no. We've hired Reds Electric. They'll come in. One thought was they could get it done in a day. I'm not sure, but probably a day and a half. There's 63 fixtures, 2 tubes per fixture, so we'll just go down the line and change them all out. So, yeah.
Some time ago, I did.
Oh yeah.
Well,
in the long term.
plus the amount of light that comes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scott had his hand up over there.
I was going to say, we were talking about programming aspect of it, and we've done some of this work before, but the city police department established what they call the Corporal Diffie Fund for a stopgap funding for veterans they run across in their work that need help before the VA can get brought online. And I think we've participated in that sort of support for houseless individuals who've shown up in our neighborhood before. So just throwing it out there, it's a thing that we've been in that realm before, and I think the Milwaukie PD has expanded that to other agencies throughout Clackamas County. So thinking about programming partners we've already worked with, that Corporal Diffie Fund that the MPD has. And then I was just going to observe at the city, we've come to the point where we're asked to do so many things in the community. And I know it's not exactly the same as what a church is asked to do, but the city can't do everything we're asked to do when it comes to doing cultural and social events and activities. So in our urban renewal agency and in our city manager's office events budget, we've moved to designating funds for community groups to approach the city, and we've set up grant programs. one things that we have 7 neighborhoods in Milwaukee, and the thing that they often spend their money on are community groups coming to them asking for grants. So we're trying to kind of expand that model, and I don't know if it would work exactly the same, but as another way to get the church's name out there is to kind of set up maybe a community events grant program or something along those lines, where groups want to do an event, they approach us, we give them 500, I don't know what the amounts are, and then we become a sponsor of that organization.
That's not a bad idea.
Just it's sort of a model we've moved to
That
the
would
city.
essentially fall under a promotional fund, right?
Yeah, you're promotional, and maybe you start to build ties and relationships in terms of the congregation and that whatever group's doing that. We're already kind of down the road, it sounds like, with hosting Love One and that kind of group, because that world of social services is a big need, and there's a lot of opportunity there too. But there are other things like, I don't know if you heard about Bing in the New Year. Last year it was an event on New Year's Eve where they dropped a giant lit cherry in the parking lot across from City Hall. That was all funded by community support. The city didn't sponsor that officially, but that was a kind of a community event that local nonprofits came together to help support. So
if you're unfamiliar with the history of Milwaukee, the Bing cherry originates from Milwaukee, hence the Bing in the New Year. Took me a second. Bing in the New Year. It was yes. Yes. I'll close with this. We kind of danced around it a little bit here, but in terms of the reason that we're doing well, and I think one of the biggest opportunities for us to continue to do well is that we have younger people here, and again, that's a little bit of a unicorn type thing. Like it's like the golden goose thing of churches is how do we just get more young people? Well, you have young people. That's how you get more young people, right? And so, one of my focuses for this year is to try and coagulate the young families that we do have around here, making sure that we're providing the resources and the programs that they're interested in. But if you want to invest in the future of this congregation, we should invest in the future of our young families. We've got a big chunk of people. So we've got Henry and Ollie and Madeline, and Maxine now, who's a little bit older, who are in our teenage age range. But we have MJ, September, Ellis, Amelia, George, and George's sister's name that I can't remember right off the top of my head, who are families in this community. So we've got a solid 6 to 10 kids that are between 2 and 6, I'll say, which is one of the reasons we're starting to offer Sunday school, right? Again, but I think there's a lot more that we can do, and there's different things that we can do. Because that was important to you all when you were raising your kids. It's probably still important, but I think there are also new things that families would like to have and or look for that we could invest in. That if we can get all of our kids to show up here on a Sunday and get all the other families that are looking for churches to show up here when all our kids are here, right? That's the ignition that it could spark. So, if we've got resources that they want and can use, and we can fund and or support, don't forget about our kids either.
Bring your kids to church day. Instead of bringing your pet to church day, we'll just bring your kids.
Blessing of the kids. We'll call it Pied Piper Sunday. Yeah, kids are a lot easier to bless than dogs and cats. They tend to listen to what you ask them to do sometimes. Although, I don't want to make any assumptions there. But yeah, definitely. I had one more thing. Susan. Oh, we just had this conversation, which is my annual reminder. If you can walk, park there, not there. If you can park on that end, so as people come down Boss Lane, they see the cars, right? Oh my gosh. But maybe eventually we'll just get rid of that parking lot and then come up with a new scheme. Jay. We can burn through it really quick. Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, and I'll reiterate, from the beginning, this money is not going to go into the general fund, right? This is not going to pay our annual expenses. This is for growth in the future. And in that regard too, Mike and Brenda put up a gratitude wall across from the office. So for November, I would invite you to write down things you're grateful for up there, which is another form of stewardship, right? Celebrating the resources and the relationships that we do have.
And there's pins hanging right there.
Yep.
You can just.
Please, not that I need to tell you this, but avoid political messaging for the time being, even before and after November 5th, right? Anything else? So, reminder: in 1 month from now, we're going to have our second town hall meeting of the fall. We'll be talking about worship and music and related items the first Sunday in December. I'm also going to plug that Sunday, which is I think December. No, it's the next Sunday. That's December 1st. December 8th, our bishop, Bishop Lori Larson Caesar, is going to be preaching here on December 8th. So I'll be here as well, but somebody else is going to be in the pulpit. So put that on your calendars. I would love to have a full church for that Sunday to show her how vital we are. Not that matters, but anyways. All right. Okay, yeah, show up for my boss, please. Make me look good. Make me look good. Okay, thanks, folks. See you in worship. See you next week.